coming for revenge. I'ma train hard, I'ma go far. I will learn with every new scar. Got a cold heart, yeah, I'm feeling arc. Enemies give me energy from the start. Got an addiction to winning, so I will work till I get it. The sweat is dripping, I'm in it, I'll never stop till I finish. I'm feeling deep, watch out, cause I'm coming for revenge. Energy, I'm a devil, yeah. I will learn with every new scar. Got a cold heart. I don't always have control, he could be me. Got a chip on his shoulder and he got some sharp teeth. Anyone in my way, and anyone who betrayed, anyone I have to face, I'll wipe them out like the plague.
All right. How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to Season 5 of ABL. I guess it's technically not Season 5 of this podcast, even though I guess maybe we could consider it. We've had one every year, right? So I guess maybe this is the upgraded Season 5 version. I don't know. Cal, how you doing, man? I don't got... Oh, there we go. Now I got you.
The thing is, I got that first of the season. I got double echo on me right now. This is a mess already, dude.
Gosh.
What the heck? You would think I'd be a pro by now.
Hey, people have no idea, but I spilled a whole mug of tea all over my electronics before getting this set up. We were trying to worry about whether we should be muted or not in pre-stream, and then we didn't have audio of our music in the intro for the first 6 minutes. So,
golly,
it is what it is. But you still got double echo.
Yeah, no, not anymore.
Okay.
I was muted originally, and then I found out it was actually triple echo because I had 2 YouTube tabs open. So I came off mute and got blasted by my own voice. Hated that. Did not like that at all. But no, we are back in the saddle. I'm excited.
Awesome.
We got a lot to dig into here, though.
Yes, we do.
We got a lot of contracts, a lot of hot takes, a lot of tears.
100% we do. 100% we do. It's it's a 2-page document that I have that we're going to be going through. So, which is good. I mean, right? We've been gone for a few months. Good to kind of get back into the swing of things. I know it's kind of interesting to me. I was thinking about kind of how we wanted to go about doing this initially, and I remembered that a lot of us have already been a part of a true, beginning 30-team draft in the ACL, right? Just a few weeks ago. And so a lot of us have kind of already had that first taste. So really, we're talking to a bunch of vets right now. Is really what we're doing. So looking to kind of lock things down. And we're going to go through contracts. We're going to go through some rankings, which I will explain again, as I always do every year. And then we'll talk about kind of the player pool. You got a spicy tier list, as always. And then we wanted to continue our hot take trend, I guess, from last year before the auction. So each of us has a hot take kind of at the end as well. So let's get into contracts here. I'm going to move over to my shared screen. Let's see, we'll get rid of some of these bookmarks here. Make the page bigger. All right. So we're just going to start kind of talking about the 5-year contracts that were given, those max extensions. And then we have a couple of 4-year, a couple of 3-year. One thing I wanted to note, and I know you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, but it seemed like there were less contracts given than in the past, right? Just
Absolutely.
In general. I mean, it felt as we were kind of going through the max extensions, as expected, are spicy, right? Like they're good players, pretty decent contracts for the most part. And so those are fun to talk about. The 4-year and the 3-year ones, though, I mean, and I would look at our 4-year ones especially, not a ton of highlights to stand out. So it'll be interesting kind of as we go through this to look at that. But why don't you go ahead?
I think that the lack of contracts might be derived from the fact that we've now gotten full FYPD cycles through. Like we now have seen, we've gone from the kids that were drafted and are on those really, really cheap contracts. Because we're seeing $5 guys, and then the next year we see a bunch of $7 guys. Yep. Each year now has its tiered of really great players that are keepable. So outside of that, you then throw them into the auction, and everyone's market value. So I think everyone kind of stays the same as well at market value. I don't think there's a lot of outliers where a team might feel comfortable to keep that player for an extra few years when they have to face inflation along with it. Plus, owners have gotten smarter over the years as well. So
That
like
too.
the
Yeah.
prices were wild in the auction,
Yep.
which then you have this bunch of this free agent class that's inflated, and then owners getting wiser to it, and so the prices come down. And I think people are just not wanting to pay the prices that are coming out of the auction anyways.
Yeah.
So and no one wants to get rid of their good players that they have on long contracts that are cheap. So I think we're seeing a lot more reserved contracts than in recent years.
Yeah, which is an interesting point in and of itself. But I think, I mean, you see that nowhere else more than in the 5-year contracts, right, that were given this year. You don't see really any bigger salary guys kept in any way, shape, or form, right? Which is to me is crazy, because we've obviously seen that in the past. But as I know, the chat was kind of blown up on today, picking on Seth a little bit. Some of the higher end long term contracts some have worked out, right? There are plenty that have not and are hurting teams, right? So I think it's
the most
very
you can hope
interesting.
for. The most you can hope for is to break even when
100%.
you sign a long deal with a high salary. So no one wants to take the risk. You might as well just throw him back in the pool. And if you don't get him the auction, you don't get him. There's plenty of fish in the sea, technically. I mean, there really aren't when you get back in there. You think that in your
Depends
head.
on who you ask.
Yeah, you think that preseason in February, not until you get into the auction you realize you messed up.
Yeah.
But I do think that seems to be the consensus of the market just is shifting downwards, and that even happened with last year's auction. I felt like was kind of a bit of a bust as far as prices were concerned.
ACL auction too. I mean, until we got to those last couple of days where it was hell on earth, right? I mean, it was for the most part, it was pretty tame. So, but yeah, just I guess taking a look at a few of these 5-year ones at least. I think the first one that stood out to me almost immediately was the Davis Martin contract, and we'll preface this and we'll put this out before we go into stuff. These are our opinions. We don't hate any of you. We love all of you. You're great owners.
I hate Frank, to be fair. Let's be honest. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Frank sucks.
So it was just opinion. Yeah, it was a very interesting contract. When I think of Davis Martin, that's not someone who I think of on a max contract in a 30-team league. That's not someone who I think on a very long contract in real life baseball either. Yeah. And I think honestly, not even necessarily like he's $3, right? So like that in and of itself, price works, right? Price fits. Okay, I get that. Starting pitcher, okay, a little risky, but still I can understand if it's worth it and it's cheap. The biggest issue for me is that he's 28.
Yeah.
Like he's on the hook until Davis Martin is 33 years old. Which is, and now again, even if he ends up cutting him, right, year 4, year 5, whatever, sure, not a huge hit, right, but that's still enough of a hit, right, if he doesn't pan out. So, yeah, very, very interesting to me, but that was kind of the first guy that stood out to me. A couple of notes outside of the 28 years old thing I made was that he's a 10.75 point per game average guy over the past 2 years, which, again, is not necessarily bad. Is it 5-year contract good though? I don't know.
It definitely stuck out to me as well. I mean, I don't know what the payoff is on Davis Martin, like what his potential is at the peak. Like how much can you really make back? Yeah, you're on the White Sox, which I guess if you're giving a max contract, you don't think that he's gonna be the White Sox the entire tenure.
Yeah.
Or at least you would hope. That would suck. But otherwise, you hope that he at least gets moved or something happens. Or maybe he's a Garrett Crochet where he's incredible and he gets shipped off because the White Sox need to get rid of someone who actually is worth something.
Yep.
But I feel like it's a far cry between Garrett Crochet and Davis Martin.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I guess we'll see how it pans out. But it was something that kind of stuck out to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Then one that I saw, and this was I had traded Xavier Edwards earlier in the season because I knew he was up for a contract, and honestly, like he's a bit of a controversial guy, especially with me, and I didn't know how to feel about him. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just try to get something like a win right now piece. I really don't want that to be stuck with that because I knew I was going to probably do the wrong thing. If it was in my hands, I was going to mess it up somehow. But the one thing that I was surprised at is that he got a max contract, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He's a really good value at his current price with what he did last season.
Yep.
The only issue that I saw with Xavier is that he seems like he's due for a lot of regression. He does one thing really well, and that's get on base. But at the same time, he had some of the highest BABIP in all of baseball last year, combined with really, really low contact, or not low contact, but like low velocity contact.
Yep.
And really just if you look at his lollipops, his Avant, it's a lot of blue in the wrong places. So if he can just maintain getting on base, he can save you, and he's a great cheap option. I think he gets multi-position as well, second and short.
That's what I was going to say. The multi-eligible helps him a lot.
Helps a ton for the value. But I did not think he was going to be a max guy, which is probably indicative of me and my opinion of players than more than anything. But that stuck out to me as well.
I mean, it's hard too, because like you look at like even him, right? He's 25, which is young, but the 5-year contract, right, is going to end when he's 30.
Yeah, you just gotta hope like it works.
Which is crazy.
Which I guess all these are, but it's not a sure thing. Which I feel like you want in a max contract. Like Garrett Crochet, I would feel great about in a max contract. The rest of them, I don't love it, but I get it. Like these are some high pedigree prospects. That's like you got to make a move. If you're wrong, you feel embarrassed that you messed up that badly. Like a Pete Crow Armstrong or a Gray Rod. Like if I don't capitalize now, and he's as good as they say he is, I'm looking at like a truly idiot. So I get it, I understand, but yeah, it just seems like that was one that stuck out.
Yeah, and I, hitting on the, the Grayson, a couple. I mean, even I could throw Caminero in there as well. Obviously, Grayson has performed at a higher level, right? Like he at least showed a lot of flashes last year, so I'd feel comfortable with that.
I don't want to show host bias here, but I legit think that was the Caminero one was the best valued contract for Max out of all of them.
Wow.
Just because like what you can get for how cheap he is, because Crochet is much more expensive.
Yep.
And Caminero is much younger, so like you're getting, and he's not a pitcher.
Yep.
So
that was the only reason. I mean, my rationale for doing it was he's 21, and I gotta think with as good of a player he is, that he's at minimum gonna be a starter, right? Maybe if he just is atrocious, he's a strong side of a platoon guy, right? And even then, with that upside, only have him at 5 and then 7 and then that to me seemed worth it versus what I'd get in the auction, right? Especially at 21 years old, and then when he's done, he's gonna be 26, and he's back in the auction. If he's anything what he's supposed to be, he'll be triple that at minimum, right? So
it's like if it doesn't work out, then there were probably 29 other owners who would have done the same mistake you did.
Yeah,
I guess I'd look at it that way. But it's Caminero. Hard to say no to that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few other notable ones we have here. I think you had listed.
Yeah, the Bibby and Gill were two other ones that I had listed, and Gavin Williams on there as well. I mean, Brendan having the two younger pitchers on big time pedigrees, I think could turn out to be huge for him long term. The Bibby and Gill ones were interesting, mainly because Gill 26, Bibby 25, still be 30, 31, not super older at the end of the lifespan. But for me, more so just not from a pitcher perspective, and I think you and I share this viewpoint. From a pitcher perspective, we're scared about committing to a pitcher for 5 years, especially one that's going to be 30 or 31 at the end of that year.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's kind of my thought process behind it. But so I mean, could be, I kind of put high risk, high reward, right? Could be good, could be bad. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Good on that. You want to move on to the 4 years?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. You're I'm looking at you now. I think, oh, there we go. Now you're back. I said, hey, your picture was frozen there for a second.
Oh no.
You're good. You're good now. Okay, let's move on to the 4s. I'm gonna go contract here, 2028. So we got some more here. Why don't you start us off? Go for it.
Okay, so the two that really, really jumped out at me off the page was Rourke keeping two cheap. I mean, they're cheap, but cheap relievers that don't have closing jobs right now.
Yep.
And they may in the future, but it still seems like a massive gamble to give really any reliever a huge contract, especially one that does not have a locked-in closing job. Like if Estrada or if Uceta both got the job like at the end of the year last year, totally fine with that. But it just seemed like a real gamble to go for that 4-year contract
Yeah.
on two guys that are really phenomenal arms. Great K to walk. Estrada is nasty, but you gotta hope that Suarez and Fairbanks just get yeeted out of there within the next year. Like, just get him out of here.
I mean,
But
Fairbanks is, I think, is he a little bit older?
I think
Is
so.
he
I
like,
want to say he's in his 30s.
so he, there's maybe a shot there, but even then, I mean, how many relievers do you know go well into their 30s? Being able to pitch
Yeah.
just fine, right? So yeah,
And
definitely a high
I'm
risk.
thinking that like Rourke's thought process would be something along the lines of, okay, if a Class A or a Helsley goes for 18 or a 15 around that range in the
Yep.
auction, I can definitely make a good value on these
Yes.
two guys I believe in, that I think will get the job and are going
Yep.
to be on good teams that can really make a lot of money for me over the years. That just seems like a huge gamble. I mean, you got to hope that pays off for you because it's going to suck
Well, and-
if they have the normal life of a reliever.
Yeah, and I guess that's your kind of the point for me right there about these two is one, you kind of have two options. One, they somehow unseat the current closer, which given their scenarios, I don't know that there's a high chance of that. I mean, I would say maybe more in Tampa than San Diego. But then on the other side of it, okay, maybe they are great setup guys and they get moved, right, to a team that needs a late inning guy. Now, if you believe in a guy enough, I guess that could be a rationale, right, to keep something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It was so surprising that it was relievers. I think that's the biggest piece that I take away from it.
Well, I can't recall if Kickering is also a keeper if he had from previous year, but I mean, even he's being kept through 2028, and he's a fringy. He could be a starter, so like, that one I get because like he could be a starter.
Yes,
But the Phillies
SPRP makes a difference. Too.
Yes, 100% because you get to circumvent the start rule and you don't throw him in a reliever slot.
Yep.
So that definitely changes things up.
Yeah.
But again, it's just the trajectory of a standard reliever that is scary to me, just on its face. But again, if you can get a huge value of it, fine. It's just the risk with contracts. That's what sticks out because we're being so risk averse with these things.
Yep.
To see that and like it's interesting. I like it. I do like the risk taking if it pays off.
Well, and I think with all of these, right? Obviously, there's risk involved, and if it works out, then that's great, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to hedge your risk, right, where you
Correct.
can. And Jeff commented actually and made a really good point. He said the big question on some of these 5-year contracts is why not do arbitration and get another year worth of data, which I think is also a brand new part of the conversation this year, right? Because we didn't have it last year, so we just implemented it. Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting part from my perspective, just again speaking as someone who gave it to Caminero, I thought about doing it because I did it with CES with Strand, who has been hurt and who hasn't necessarily played consistently for long enough, they don't know what position he's really going to be at. So for me, I wanted, just like Jeff said, I want that more data, right? I want as much as I can get on him to make sure he is good long term. But with Caminero, I guess to me, it just, as I mentioned before, it seemed like there was very little that could go wrong outside of him just completely flaming out in the majors, which I feel like is a very low percentage. Right. That I would rather lock him in now for 5 years at the lower price than have to go up that extra couple bucks and have that hit me every single year. So for me, again, risk reward, but I think he makes a fair point. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think he makes a fair point that, is going 5 years worth it when you easily could just arb someone and move on after the next year.
No, I understand. I understand what your point, but I think Jeff most of the time would be correct for most players. I think Caminero probably is the exception to most of those rules because, like you said, I'm kind of sold on him myself as just watching him. I think he's going to be incredible. Again, could be totally wrong. I've been wrong many times, but I think his CES is a great way to use the arbitration rule because it's like I feel good about it, but not that good. Like I'm not gonna just go out on a whim here and just give him that money. Or give him that many years rather. So I think most cases Jeff's right, and I think a lot of people agree with it because arbitration was used kind of heavily this year.
It was
I think a lot of teams
surprisingly.
jumped on it. Yeah, which I get if the extra $2 is not going to kill me, I would assume, but they're
It's hard
probably
to
going to
know
be
though.
long.
It's hard to
Yeah,
know,
it is.
right?
It
Like
is.
because look at all the people who have dropped contracts, right?
Yeah.
And now a few teams have multiple, and they've added up in the auction. You're losing, a dollar or two per slot. It's interesting because
really
I thought about
matters.
that too. I'm like, oh, is $2 really that big of a deal? Like, is it like?
You
and
say
I
it's not today
it-
until the
correct.
4th day or 5th day.
And you got to think about it too. You're getting it's $2 not just this year. It's $2 every year, right?
Sure.
Because you're going up 4 instead of going up 2. So every year it's going to be $2 more. Which again, I understand it's only $2 per year, but over the course of time, right? That's still obviously more money that you're committed to. So there's that piece of it to look at too. All right, let's look at the 3 years. We'll go to 2027 here.
Yeah, I think the ones I listed were more of a compare and contrast of what we had just seen previously.
Yeah.
I gotta pull that up. Where's my 20?
Yeah, go for it. So yeah, well, go ahead. You pull it up, and I'll talk kind of about what I was most interested in.
Okay, yeah, hold up.
So for this one, the Mason Miller, talk of the town from a reliever standpoint, right? I think both
Love
of
Mason
the
Miller.
both of the ones that I had pulled up here were were relievers again, closers. But I think his ADP is like just above 100, which for obviously for a reliever, a closer is pretty high, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, and I think it's probably because Steven is very risk averse, especially when it comes to closers. But I would have been much less surprised if Mason Miller at $7 would have been a 4 or a 5 year contract as opposed to a Davis Martin or a Uceda or Estrada, right? Like that.
Which is why he was that's why he was marked because that was like, okay, you're paying 7 for this through 4. I'd rather take the 5 on that than like we just talked about with the 4s rather. So it was just I thought that was interesting because I think Mason Miller has the stuff to be probably like up there with the top of the top. So
100%.
Whether or not he actually has the opportunity to, doubt it.
Big difference.
I hope Sacramento, whatever the hell they're calling them these days, just finally gets wise and just gets him out of town.
Yeah.
I know that we complain they do that all the time with their talent, but I mean honestly, they don't take it seriously. Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
You guys aren't trying to win. Everyone knows you're just waiting till Vegas. Get rid of the poor guy. Release him. Just get him out of there.
Yeah.
Him and Rooker too. I'll add him to the list. But yeah. Miller definitely deserves more saves. So I think it's a good keeper on that one.
Yeah. How about anyone else you got on 3 year you were looking at?
I'm scanning right now because the hard part is I didn't mark these off in time. But one that did stick out was Ben Lively. Seems like a lot of it's $3 a $3 pitcher, but also he's 32.
Yep.
And it's also he seemed like a fringy rotation guy going into the year, anyways.
Yeah.
Because I want to say he was with Colorado last year, which we all have controversial opinions with Colorado.
Yeah.
I might be totally off on that one, but I believe he was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So it goes in that Guardians rotation, which I mean, I think he'll do fine, but I think the thought process there is just like it's cheap pitching. Like what am I going to?
Well, yeah, it's an end of the
not?
rotation guy, right? And if he is starting pitcher eligible, they probably signed him knowing he's going to be on the major league roster. So at worst, you're getting a spark, right? Like at minimum. So now the issue with that is, well, it's if it becomes a 3 year spark, right? Because then I don't know that I want like a $7 spark going into last year. I mean, unless he's a guy who's pitching twice a week, getting 3 innings, 5 strikeouts, like that kind of stuff. Then okay, sure, he's an 8-9 point per game type of spark. But yeah, I mean, if he's a back end pitcher, I mean, sure, I'll take a $3 to $7 back end starter.
Absolutely. I think my only thing was like these days, like if you are 32, 33, struggling back end rotation pitcher, they'll launch you out of a cannon. So I don't. That's my only thing is that like his leash will be so short that you just hope you can squeeze those 3 years out of them and just get that money because it is a great value. Obviously, you're getting those starts for for like a dime. It's cost you nothing. So I think it could work out, but it stuck out to me as far as like, okay, I like the endorsement of Ben Lively.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Well, I'm good on contracts. Anything else you wanted to kind of talk about?
No, I think that those are all the notable years, anyways.
Yeah,
So
those are big ones. I mean,
I don't think anyone didn't get enough years. You know that there was some that
yeah.
stuck out, but I don't think anyone was just like, man, you could have gone for more there. I think everyone's gotten real smart about the contracts.
Yeah, not at least at first glance. Certainly
Right.
we didn't go through each contract with a fine tooth comb. It's hard when you don't have an exact list, right, of contracts.
Yeah, plus
But
the time thing. I mean, it happened last night. We're trying to
exactly,
scramble
yeah.
and get all stuff.
less than 24 hours to turn
I
all
was
this
at
around.
work
So
with trying to get sneak in a Google sheet, just like okay.
hey, we're really good at our jobs. Okay.
Yes,
And
correct.
and by
That's
jobs
it's the
I mean
efficiency. It's
hobby.
the efficiency at work that lets us do this. That's what it is.
Correct. All right. Well, let's move on to our next topic. Then we got some team rankings. So I guess I'm just gonna. I don't know how else to reveal this, but I guess I'll just pull it up on the screen and they'll all be there.
Let's hit.
So, let's see. Can I zoom this out enough?
Trying to blow up the thing.
Yeah. Hold on. It's almost everyone. Go a little bit less. There we go. All right. Hopefully that's good enough for the stream. Hopefully people can see. But okay. So the explanation, as always, and I'm guaranteed. I will have to explain the traditional regular season rankings as well once we get to the actual season. But yeah, and I should say as well, Dylan thankfully has stepped up to try and help me fill in David's role from last year since David's gone now. So I shout out to Dylan for trying to help me and get things going on that end. But anyway, so rankings.
It's an ace thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So okay, how these work. I have a current roster ranking, which is essentially just everyone's average ADP divided by the number of starting slots that they have filled, right? So you maybe could have like a really low ADP, but if you only have 2 slots filled, you're not going to have a high ranking for your roster because you have a lot of spots open, right? And vice versa. If you have a lot of spots filled, but they're not with very good players, you're not going to be very high on this list.
Sure.
And then the second one is just simply dollar per slot. Everyone knows what that is at this point. The higher you are, the more dollar per slot you have. So a higher score is a good thing, hence why it's green. Lower score, red, bad. I guess I have the difference over here in this last column too, just so people can see how far apart things are. But anyway, before I go over stuff, anything that jumps out to you, because I don't know if you looked at this at all.
No, I don't. I didn't even. I honestly did not know you had it. I did not know we had.
So
this.
there you go. What are your thoughts?
Two things. One, don't love that I'm pretty much smack dab in the middle. Two, Joe. Well, Joe is cracking me up there. Just has the best roster he possibly could. Zero money.
Yeah, and look at it. What's so funny? One of the things I put on here, from just like a takeaway, are the Dodgers and the Padres. I'm skipping way ahead, but the Dodgers' current roster, talent wise, is great. Joe said it himself. He's got a starting lineup, which is great.
Yeah.
But to fill the other 14 slots that he has, he has absolutely nothing to work with for the most part. But then Greg,
even you,
on the other end, has an atrocious roster currently. Again, according to ADP, not my opinion. That is just objective. Yep. But he has a ton of money to work with per slot, so could easily bump that up. But again, he's still got a decent amount of slots to fill as well. So that's also part of it. What else stands out though? You said 2 things.
See, I'm running through. No, I was just saying the fact that I was smack dab in the middle.
Oh, that's right.
Like,
you said
that's
yourself.
pretty boring.
That's right.
Yes, the LA teams being in the middle. I don't. I guess it's all the West Coast there, but I'm trying to scan through here.
Well, I'll say I hate I'm frickin' bottom 10. First time I've ever been down there. But I put myself in that position.
Lenny with the 1-4.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of so here were some. Well, before we go takeaways, because I'm getting ahead of myself. Screw it. We'll go takeaways. I don't need to talk about anything else. So some of my other takeaways from this, because I know as you're looking through it, I'll just kind of talk about what else I saw. So Dodgers Padres, huge difference there. Just thought that was really interesting. But then on the opposite end, the teams that have very low splits. So the Orioles, myself, the Twins, and Frank with the Cubs. We all kind of have shaky rosters. So Frank's 9, I'm 10, Steve's 11.
Yep.
And then dollar per slot, Steve's 12, I'm 9, Frank's 8. So all of us have not super great rosters from an ADP perspective, and we also don't have very much from a dollar per slot perspective. So it's going to be difficult, to say the least, to come away from the auction potentially feeling good, which is really unfortunate because I thought I was in a better position than maybe I am. So I've started to, in the past 24 hours, prep a little differently. But that was an interesting takeaway as well.
Well, okay, so looking at this, we might have a bit of a problem on our hands because I decided I was going to do our first ever data-driven tier list ranking. but the thing is, the math involved is so embarrassing. Like I last night I felt like I invented new math when I was doing the rankings, but the problem is that it's very similar to yours. So, but what I did was not what you did.
Hey, well, that's even better. That's that's awesome.
Well, maybe it's not a good look for you though.
Oh, hey, well, as I have always said, while I am pulling these numbers out of my ass and I am just making it up as we go, they are all objective numbers. I did not make any of them up.
So mine was like gonna be, I was gonna call it the fun index, and basically it's like how much fun you can have in the auction. It's not like team based really. It's not like how good your team is. It's how much fun you can have in the auction. But honestly, like the Duke is pissing me off. I just keep looking at him up there. I keep seeing him, and it's just making me very upset. But honestly, love to see hater Kevin at the top of the rankings.
Yeah. Rival
Kevin being right up there with Duke.
Yeah.
And the D-backs. We have a new owner alert up there. Pretty high on the list.
So the crazy thing is my last kind of takeaway that I had from this was that I considered there to be 3 teams in the top 5 that I would be considered to be newcomers in that area, right? So Tampa, Arizona, Chicago White Sox, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, when have we ever seen the White Sox that high on any list ever? Outside of maybe the number of picks that they have.
We made fun of Tom plenty, but we also said that like he's going to be a problem.
He's also going to be a big problem, which clearly is already happening. And then on top of that, if you move to top 10, there's 2 more teams that I would throw in there as well, the Nationals and the Astros, who, I mean, again, Evan, newer owner, right? Now top 10. The Nats, famously, Jordan and Tom have been bottom dumpster dwellers for years and now are top 10 before the draft as well. And easily could be contenders this year. Yep. So I thought that was very interesting, along with, of these top 5, 4 of the top 5 have top 10 rosters, and 4 of the top 5 also have top $5 per slot, which to me is fucking insane.
Yeah.
That they have, I mean, 26, 27, 28, and 30. The top 4 teams have the best dollar per slot. That is insane.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, just awesome keepers basically. It's and I would say White Sox are homegrown, Pirates are homegrown. I don't know, like, was Kevin? I don't think Kevin had like an amazing farm system where he called everyone up. I think he just really good trades, mainly.
Yeah, he's made a lot of good moves over the past year and a half.
And I don't remember the construction of the Diamondbacks roster. I don't know how much.
Not anymore.
I don't know what happened. That whole thing snuck up on me.
Yeah.
So very cool to see them that high up.
Well, and Kevin in chat has a message for you. He says that you're actually not rivals because he's asking if you see how far apart you are in the rankings.
What are we doing here? What is that? First of all, I first called him Hater Kevin.
Yeah, Hater Kevin.
For starters, which is a much different thing than a rival. Okay. But
very true.
I'm pretty sure I had more wins than him last year, so I don't even know what he's coming me with here.
Yeah, results matter, right?
I think maybe he had to beat by like 5 wins. I don't know. I don't think it was that impressive. Whatever. He was barely got into the playoffs. I don't even know what he's talking about.
All I know is we gotta see a pizza bet this year. Got to. You guys are you're the new rival of the ABL. Like you are the matchup.
I don't know what happened. I always liked Kevin. I was always nice to Kevin. I don't know what happened.
You guys aren't even like. I mean, I guess you're technically both. Well, you're on opposite coasts, right? Like, there's no rivalry that I know of in real life between LA and Tampa. So yeah, I don't know. Must just be a personality thing.
Other than I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It must just be my West Coast demeanor that may be off-putting there.
Be that.
That must be it.
Oh man, good stuff. All right. Anything else from rankings wise?
No, that's
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, so
I took my shots at Kevin like I wanted to. So that's
yeah,
good.
exactly. And I should say too, if anyone wants to, take a look at this or take a look at the math or whatever, feel free to shoot me a message. Happy to send it to you.
I would not be. For mine, I will not be happy to send it to you. No one's gonna see what I did. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Last thing before we go into our tier list here. So player pool.
yes,
Probably the most interesting thing we'll talk about, right? Because it's what everyone is excited about. Just over 12 hours, I think. So yeah, let's just kind of go over it. We talked about beforehand how we had pretty much the exact same opinions on every single position. So I guess plan will be I'll just go down the line. Really, we can state whatever I guess we want to say. We won't specifically call out like I don't know good values. I guess we'll just it's very vague. We're not trying to influence the auction in any way. That is not our goal. Cal and I definitely do not take this anywhere close to that serious. So this is literally us having a blast. I don't know, Cal. I told you about the cocktail I'm drinking before. I am 2/3 of the way through this thing right now in about half an hour. So we are having a blast.
we're in the pocket.
Right now. Yes. All right. So let's start with catchers. I will let you go first here because honestly, I looked at this list. I don't know how many people I've told, but I famously have never spent on a catcher ever.
Sure. Talking to the right guy here.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like I'm out of the
Oh.
loop because I feel like a lot of people spend on catchers, and I've never seen the value in it. So why don't you
let me say one thing right now. I don't spend on catchers. I do spend on Adley Rutschman. They're two very different things. They are two different things in my brain.
Okay.
So I'm a catcher hater except for one guy. And there's always one out there, that you can get for at bats. So I don't know if anyone's gonna really put the throttle down on the money for this entire position as a whole. But it's really just going to be an afterthought, I think, for most people. But the main problem you're going to run into is those that do need it are going to need it desperately. So is there going to be like bidding wars? Because it's not like there's not that many at bats to go around for starting catchers.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I messaged you this in the ACL draft, but at towards the end of the draft, I obviously did not have a catcher yet. I was kind of waiting. I always try to look for, all right, are there any dual catchers left, right, like starter backup type thing, and Jake Rogers from Detroit, and I can't even remember the name of his backup. Whoever it was, I don't even know, but I put Rogers out there. Someone bid me up to 2, so I had Rogers for 2, and then a couple of noms later, I put out his backup, thinking like this guy's going to get maybe 120 at bats this year, and put him out. All right, I'll take him. I'll have both of them, and someone ended up paying more for him than they did for Rogers.
Sure.
And so
I gotta pull it up now.
I'm just like,
here.
I can't even remember who the heck it is, but it's someone I know who it is. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway, so yeah, for me, it's just I will take whoever people.
Oh, the Dingler.
Dingler, thank
Dylan
you.
Dingler.
Yeah, I knew there was an alliteration there. Yeah, so it was funny to see that. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens here, given that there are a few names at the top and then a bunch of not names afterwards. Interesting to see if anyone's willing to. I mean, if you spend for Wong, I could at least understand that because he's 3 positions, right?
Right. I mean, we got him in ACL for that reason. Like, it's just the ability to move him around. So,
which makes sense.
I get the utilitarianism on that one, but you're gonna have to keep him in one spot. That's kind of the only thing is that great, you can put him in other places, but you're gonna have to keep him a catcher.
Correct.
You're not gonna probably have a good
unless you have someone else, that you already have. Maybe I don't know. All right, moving on to first. What are your thoughts there?
First base seems to have like you got a good top end. It's maybe a few. This is one older guy. I think is good. There can be good value overall. Perhaps I don't know what the prices are going to be. I don't know. I'll never know what the prices are going to be with these people.
Yeah.
But I still think you'll feel good about it going into the auction. You're probably targeting a few of these guys, and the rest of it on down. It just seems like you get good playing time. And there's some decent as you go down the list, you get more eligibility. So I think it's gonna be pretty hit or miss on the value part of it because these guys, I feel like they're pretty consistent, but I think it's basically gonna be when they get put out there of how crazy is the money gonna be.
Yeah, it's really again another position that's very intriguing because it's a ton of names we know. I mean,
Yeah.
you look down the whole first page for the most part, you know every single name on here. You
Hmm.
know that they have contributed at one point in their career, right? Very consistent. Um, but yeah, does that mean that because there's a lot of them that it's going to be lower spending, or is it because there's a decent amount of quality? You know, there's 10 to 15 names that certainly could contribute, right, in a positive manner. Does that mean that they're a little more expensive? I'm not sure, but
Well,
it,
I
it
think
also go on.
it's a top heavy position as a whole.
Yes.
So I think you're going to probably see a tier well above the rest in spending with this current
Okay.
year, and then after that, you probably see another overspending with the multi position guys,
Yeah,
and then just
multi-position for
nothing.
sure.
Yeah, because there seems to be plenty of multi position guys, and that always just rewires the brains of
Yeah.
people in this league.
Well,
Which I get it,
100%.
I
100%.
totally get it, but there probably will be a little bit of spending going on than we think.
Well, and it makes me wonder too, like because there are a decent amount of quality names, not high end, but quality names. How many teams need a first baseman? I didn't even go through
Fair.
and look at that, but it'd be interesting, right? Like if there are 15 teams that don't have a starting first baseman, okay, then I think it logically makes sense.
Yeah.
But if there's 10 teams, I mean, there's going to be some decent first base bats that are, on someone's bench or in a utility slot or whatever it might be. So,
Mm,
yeah, very
absolutely.
very very interesting. But okay, let's move on to second base here. My take on this was when I first saw it. I see a lot of big names, a lot of
Yep.
names that are known by pretty much everyone. High end names too, right? I mean, just looking ADP wise, you got six in the top 200, eight in the top 300. I guess if you include Wong. So to me, I mean, and they're a little bit older, right? But they're also so consistent.
Yep.
Just
Correct.
you,
Exactly.
you, whatever you are paying for, you're gonna get your return for the most
Yep.
part, right? I mean, even a guy like Jimenez, not a bad buy by any means, but yeah, I look at this and say there could be some money spent here, especially at the top. I believe looking at a lot of teams, like a guy like Mookie, guy like Xander, multi-eligibility guys, McNeil as well, since he's got outfield eligibility. Need like a shortstop, second base ish type player.
Uh-huh.
Everyone needs outfield depth, so I could see some more money being spent, in those areas as well. So I think that'll be interesting to kind of look at this position specifically.
Yeah, I think it's a lot better than last year because I think last year second base sucked big time. So
Yeah, I feel
it
like I
must just
remember.
be because
Yeah,
these guys were holding out on us. I have to assume.
had to be.
But I think this is one of the better positions that we have because second
Yes.
base is such it's a premium for offense that this is probably as good as you're gonna get for what the position is. So buy. If you are in the market, this is your year.
Yeah.
Is how it seems. Because like I said, most of this list, I would feel pretty good about. You know,
100%.
I would feel pretty good about this list, but that's just what I would assume because I think second base as a whole sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like we got a good list of guys here.
Yeah. Which again leads me to ask the question: how many teams need a second baseman? Right.
Yeah,
That
I don't know.
scares me.
It seems like the one that like not a lot of guys play it. As in like first
Like
base,
true
throw
second
them at
baseman.
first.
Yeah.
It's not something you just pick up, I
Yeah.
suppose. And if you do pick it up, you're probably not a great offense guy. You're kind of moving around the infield. I'll play left field, second, short.
Yeah.
Something like that. You're just trying to keep on the roster.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there are probably more teams than you would think that needed a good starting second baseman, whereas first base you can kind of puzzle piece it together.
Yeah, and I think Adam talked about the eligibility rule change this year as well, moving it down
Oh,
to
only two games,
two
yeah.
games. I mean that is a huge game changer, right?
Yeah.
I mean it makes such high percentage of players in our league now playing multiple positions, which
Yep.
I think is good in the sense that everyone really gets access to it now, right?
Yes.
Like it almost devalues multi-eligible players because there are so many of them, right? I don't have to overpay for one because there are more. But I also think it potentially, whichever positions have more of them. So like I look at outfield, for example, and we'll move on to that in a couple positions here. There are so few outfielders that only have one position of eligibility,
Yes.
right? Whereas you look at infielders, there's a lot more infielders that are only eligible at one spot. So to me, it has a much bigger impact on the outfield side of things than it does maybe the infield as well. So I think that's an interesting point.
And it also shows that like your utility guys are legit utility guys. Like, if they
100%.
can play there, if they can just breathe out there, they got eligibility.
Yep.
Which is pretty close to what MLB does anyways.
That's what I was gonna say.
like
It's consistent.
yeah, it's like a guy like Kike or Dubon, like
Yep.
they play every single
Dubon
position.
has every position eligible.
Yeah, which I guess Kike doesn't play right field. What a
Yeah.
loser. But I got RP and RF completely
Or maybe he
messed up
does,
there.
but they have some sort of bias against him. So
Yeah, what honestly, who's blocking him from getting that eligibility? That kind of peeves me, but whatever. But yeah, I think it's nice that if you can play there, you play there.
yep.
I do like the rule change because there are plenty of guys that are just so close to that. It's like, no, he plays that position.
Yep.
He truly can. So it opens up the game for everyone, I think.
Yep. I agree. A lot of different strategies too, which is cool.
Yeah.
So moving on to third base. So third base, I said, was very much like first base. You got a lot of quote unquote regulars in this list. Interesting part about this is you have a couple of holdovers from first base, right? Guys that are first base, third base eligible. But the guys at the top, you look at the top 9, 6 of the top 9 are only third base eligible, right? Which is, to me, again, a limitation of the position, but it also potentially speaks to, okay, there are a bunch of regulars, but they're regulars for a reason. They're regulars because they've been around forever. They're consistent, right? They're worth whatever it is that you're paying them.
Yeah, because I mean, third base is such a hard job that if you're not playing third base, if you are multi-position,
Yep.
probably not good at third base to begin with.
Yep.
So I think everyone here that is third base only is a pretty great third baseman in their own right.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a knock against these players that I have to stick there. I'd be happy to stick them there the entire year if they were on my team.
Agreed.
So yeah, I would not be shying away from any of them just because of one position.
That's what from going back to the Caminero conversation, like if he just played at third base for the next 15 years, sweet. Sounds great. I'll keep him there forever, right?
I'll take the points.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds great. All right. Shortstop. So for this, we have some higher end names that we know, but boy, does it fall off.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't know what, because
holy
it's such a
smokes.
deep position as a whole.
Yeah, well, especially
It sucks.
multi-eligible guys. Like, there's a ton of people who are shortstop eligible, but like the top guys in and of itself. And again, if you're including the Mookies and the Xanders, then it's great. If you remove those guys just because they're multi-eligible, oh man.
There's like 9 guys here. Because after that, it's you can get them in any position. They're all utility guys.
9.
So,
I was gonna say 9 is even pushing it, but
I'm being nice.
yeah. But yeah, so I think it'll be, which again, it begs the question though, how many teams need one, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm one of them. I'm a team that needs a shortstop in some capacity. So yeah, it'll be interesting. My hope is that there are not very many teams that need a shortstop, but I also think that probably is not the case, and I'm sure Duke wants one of these guys, so I can just check one of them off my list already.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. It'll be. I think shortstop is if I had to pick a position to watch in the draft, shortstop would be my position to watch, just simply because, boy, if you don't get one of the starters, so to speak, it's going to be rough potentially outside.
It's going to be rough anyways. I mean, it's going to be a bidding war.
100% it is. 100%. You're probably overpaying for any of these guys if you need them, right? Assuming you need one, you're probably overbidding. All right, let's move on to potentially the most interesting positions here in terms of outfield. And I say that because, as I mentioned earlier, so many outfielders have multi-eligibility that it's easy to talk about them in each position or in 2 positions, whatever it might be. so essentially my thought was we just kind of talk about outfield as a group,
Sure. Yeah.
because it's very like there's no reason to talk about left field when it's Yelich and Profar are the only, and I guess Benintendi, but who cares about him, are the only like left field guys on this list, and no one wants to hear us talk about those guys.
Which Benintendi, what are you doing, dude? You can't even hit. Go play center field,
Yeah,
bitch.
that's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Crazy.
So I think outfield as a whole, the note I put down essentially was tons of multi-eligibility, which is great. That also means that there could be some decent value, right? And I mean decent value early on in terms of the higher end guys, knowing that you don't have to overspend there, that you can potentially get 1, 2, 3 guys later on and still meet your eligibility goals. What I think will be interesting though is day 4 of the draft, maybe, when you're looking at, page 2 and 3 of outfielders here, if people will be scrambling a little more for certain eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And especially, starting spots. I know a lot of people have different resources they use to see maybe who's starting, who's going to be, who's going to get more playing time, who's strong side versus short side, right? So I think that'll be something interesting to watch as well. Is day 3, day 4, what kind of eligibility are we seeing from the outfield on the auction board? I think that'll be really interesting to look at.
Yeah, I mean, outfield is always going to be pretty deep, but I think it's deeper than most because you can get really good at bats on page 4. Even you can still get serviceable at bats that you can throw on your bench and feel good about it. As a good depth piece.
Because of the multi eligibility now too, right?
Yes.
Before you could still get them, but the multi eligible guys were huge. Now, as long as you just get really almost any outfielder, he's going to have probably 2 positions at minimum. So you're getting at bats somewhere.
It's huge. Yeah, that is a huge thing because in the day-to-day lineup, if anyone's off or if anyone's hurt, tweak the muscle, whatever, you throw them in there.
Yep.
So I think there's tons of value to be had. It's probably just going to be outfielders off the board on stop because there's plenty of them.
Yep.
Which again, not surprising. I mean, there's 3 positions to play. There's plenty of outfielders, ton of eligibility. Yeah, it was not going to be a surprise that there's a bunch of them to go around.
Yeah, not even a little bit. All right, position everyone cares the most about, for whatever reason. Okay, obviously we know why. Starters. So I was surprised looking at this list because there's actually a good amount of names on the list and a good amount of quality names on the list. More on the older side, I would say on average, but I think the big question is going to be, are people willing to overspend on names like these guys just to have a name, right? Just not, I'm buying this guy for $5, $10 over what I had him at, but I'm doing it because I want a good pitcher this year, not because I'm going to keep him for 2 years, right? 3 years, whatever it might be. So that'll be really interesting to me, is to kind of almost see how you got to assume people are going to overspend, right? But what percentage? Because if it's overspend by just a little bit, okay, maybe we have some keepers after this year. But if it's overspend by average of $5 for each slot, I mean, now we're probably seeing this same list next year, plus more, right?
The top end is, I think, almost the same as last year. I think there's a good mix of the top 10.
Yeah.
That we were talking about last year. So then again, we've seen massive behavior changes in how owners approach the auction. So maybe there will be kind of a collective hive mind of, I mean, I want to keep this guy though, Yeah. So perhaps there will be a little bit of throttling back. Maybe now that we're getting more prospects up and that there's a lot of quad A guys and maybe there's some ARB guys thrown in there, whatever. Maybe some manipulation of contracts where you can kind of get more starters in there.
Yep.
Maybe we'll see a different market for pitcher. Probably not, though.
I was going to say,
just knowing how it works.
It would have to be a huge shift, right?
Yeah, it would have to be a huge
all
shift.
it takes is a couple of teams willing to overpay for it, and then everyone else has to start overpaying, right?
I think the unique part about this year is that we have those teams with high dollar per slots.
Correct.
And probably higher than
teams.
other years.
And good teams, right?
Yes.
So it's okay if they overspend on the elite pitcher, right?
Yep, absolutely. So we probably at the high end we will probably see a lot of spending, but I do think it'll probably die down which again, this is gonna absolutely bite me.
I know. I can't believe you
dude.
even
I need a
said
pitcher.
it, man.
I need a pitcher.
Oh,
Okay.
I
No,
can't believe
honestly,
you
though.
even said it.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I even
Because you know it's
thought that in my head.
You know it's going to be in
It's like saying world peace, dude.
100%.
Why would I even think that?
Tuesday next week. You and I are going to DM each other, and we're going to be like, "Why the f did you say that on stream?"
Because
you
by the way, when I said I need a
cursed
pitcher,
us.
it's not. I'm not trying to adjust the mark of my words like anyone cares what I'm saying. I'm literally just hoping and praying that I can even look at a pitcher and maybe think, you know what? Maybe I'll make him yellow. You know, maybe maybe I'll attempt to bid on him. So this is me just hoping I can do it. This is just no mark at anything. It's just pitching is going to be ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to come to grips with that. We just got done with the ACL and that pitching fiasco.
Oh
So
God.
doing it all again, I'm not wanting to
I
do
told
this all
myself
again.
I wasn't going to draft Senzatella again for like the 5th year in a row, and what did I do?
Well, he's cheap. I'll stop making him so dang cheap. You know?
Right? Well, from the peanut gallery again as well, Kevin would like to know exactly how much Pavetta is going again for.
You know, I stand by that. I stand by what I said. It was $20, I think. I think I said $20. I stand by what I said.
Okay.
I think that was correct.
You heard it here first. $20
for Pavetta.
Yeah. All right, we're going relievers now. So interesting take on this one. Maybe it's not that interesting. Maybe I just thought it was interesting. There are very few serviceable Sparps that I feel like are worth spending any sort of decent amount of money on in the draft. And again, I have a different opinion than some on that because I view a Sparp as a true long reliever, right? I'm not talking about a guy who is a long reliever but also is going to start 10 games this year, right?
No, I had like Dane Dunning, I think was that.
Yes,
for me.
yes.
It was a perfect example of that.
Correct.
Just a guy who will go in and get 4 innings.
Correct.
That's it. You know.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And never going to really be a starter in any capacity. Not going to be like an opener or anything either, right? Just literally a true long reliever type guy.
Yeah.
There just aren't very many of them out there, and I think that now most people are going to look at the RP section and say, okay, well, I'm more worried about closers, right? For high end closers, which there are multiple of them actually, a lot of high end options, but after that, it becomes an absolute mess. I mean, there's just it's literally pick your poison of what kind of, I don't want to say shitty relief pitcher because there's plenty of good relief pitchers, but none of us know what role these guys are going to be in. And so that's when I usually like to go to the Sparps because I know what role they're going to be in, right? But there aren't really many to bid on, I think, in my opinion. So I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah, like at the very least, like, okay, I don't know his role, but I know I can farm innings off of him.
Correct. I know kind of what I'm getting from a consistency standpoint. I don't have to guess whether or not this guy's gonna get any 8th inning action or if he's gonna be the holds leader in the league.
Correct. Yes, so absolutely.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because there really is after the elite closers, it's a shit show. That's no other way to sum it up. But
well, it's not like they're bad pitchers, right?
No, but
they're good pitchers, but you don't know.
It's exactly. It's the safety of like, okay, I know his role. Like no one in here I feel good about, like a setup guy even. Yeah, well, and maybe because they're being kept, I don't know. I have no idea what the economy is like with relievers.
Yeah. How can you know? Right.
Yeah.
Outside of like the top end closers, how is there any way that we would ever be able to measure that? It would be impossible.
Yeah, you're pretty much just going off of last year's performance anyways.
Correct.
To kind of dictate where these guys are going to fall, which is totally unfair. I mean,
Correct.
Spring will kind of weed out some of these jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, by and large, it's basically like if you're getting a closer, go get them. Otherwise, just good luck. You're throwing darts.
Yep. That's all. I mean, half the time it feels like that's all I'm doing anyway, right? Regardless of the position. Okay. Anything else player pool rise you wanted to kind of chat about?
No, I think we got her done.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to do tier list, and then we'll end with our hot takes. That work for you?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay. So I'm pulling it up right
Sweet.
now. So this is We're gonna go. Let's see. Can I go full screen here? Ooh,
Yeah, my
can.
feed's behind.
Beautiful.
So just let
yeah,
me know.
no, you're good. You're good. So I am on.
Fantrax right now.
I am on the title screen right now. It's
Okay.
sad that it's showing obviously the Dodgers, but it is.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it either. I just know I did the Rangers last year, so I figured
Yep.
it was only like fair and reasonable.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we'll go into our first tier. Again,
Page
this
one.
is based on the fun index. This is all about money. This is all money related.
And you know what? And before we get into this, and I know I showed the first screen on accident already, but
Okay.
I always go into these tier lists never having seen them at all.
That's the way to do it.
Cal has never missed, and I always find them absolutely hilarious. So I wanted to throw that out there beforehand. If I'm making crazy comments, it's because I've never seen this before. So here we go.
Number one, we have the Doge tier. Duke is in his
So good.
bag right now with cutting waste on his team. He's got people working efficiently, high productive labor. I mean, there's $0 that he does not know where they're going or what's happening. So, wow. Round of applause for Duke, the Doge Meister.
He's literally
Incredible
making
job.
money by
He's
cutting
in a
money.
tier all of his own.
Yeah.
That's how much money he's got. Again,
That's
this
crazy.
is based on skill or anything. It's just like vibes going
Yep.
into the auction as
Yep.
far as like how much fun are you going to have?
Yep.
How much money you have to spend? What's your roster looking like? Stuff like that.
What
So
do
we
you
go into our second tier
Well,
here.
before you go into second tier,
Oh, yes.
what do you think Duke drinks while he drafts?
Gin and tonic.
Really?
I don't know. It's off
Interesting.
the dome.
See, for
Probably
me,
a bourbon guy, but that felt like an easy answer. It feels like a safe answer to say bourbon.
it was and that I was gonna go with that because I just picture him like with a book in one hand,
Yeah.
rock and bourbon in another hand in a short glass, sitting by a wood fire that he lit
Yes.
as he looks at the auction at 8 p.m. at night. That's
With his
what
readers
I,
on. He
Correct.
has readers on.
Correct.
Too,
That's what I envision him doing every single night of the auction. Anyway, tier 2.
Tier 2, autopilot. Listen, autopilot's come under fire recently, but we still believe in autopilot. We're a pro plane podcast, always have. So these three teams really they have a high dollar per slot, and they still have good rosters. So
Yep.
they can spend their money however they please. It's not going to be hard for them.
Yep.
They're just going to coast the rest of the way through.
Love it.
Our next tier, our third tier, we have the in-ground pool tier. They're doing well for themselves. You're definitely a little envious of them, but not too rich to where you don't relate to them. It's like one of those types of things.
Fair
It's like,
enough. Fair
we're both
enough.
in this together, but not really. I know you'll turn on me someday when you make a little bit more money. So
That's how I felt
definitely-
about Brendan our whole rivalry, is that he's always just been a little bit better than me.
Yes.
That's how it feels.
And again, these are teams that are still have the money to spend.
Yes.
But they will also be with us in the slog.
Love
There's
it.
going to be a slog, and they're going to feel it.
Yep. Love
It's like they're susceptible to like market crashes. That type of thing. They're not so rich
Yes.
where they're not experiencing that. So that's where they're at.
it. Love it.
So next up, we have the Kevin tier.
Oh, yes.
Yes, this is pure mediocrity at its finest. So we figured we could do his own tier. You may be questioning why am I here. Listen, I don't make the rules. I don't make the tiers.
This is objective. This is objective.
Computer does it. That's why it's data driven. I didn't
Hell
want to
yeah.
do it either, but I ended up being in the tier. I made the tiers ahead of time.
That is
I ended
so
up
good.
being in it.
So
I didn't like it.
That's so good.
But yeah, anyways, these are just the teams that really will have nothing to do except for just cry. It's because you have a decent enough roster that you know what you have to do, and you have enough money to not be able to do it.
Hell yeah.
So it's
Hell
gonna
yeah.
suck. But we have our next tier. This is communist. As you can see, communist tier. You might be thinking a little harsh. I don't know why you're doing that. This is no real knock against communism. I will knock it later though. It's just because it spells out CCCP.
Yeah,
So that really wasn't anything.
I love it.
It really wasn't anything
Absolutely
to drum
love
up.
it.
But my communism critiques will come much later. So we have that late. And then finally, in our final tier, we have our Mosaic tier. These are teams that don't have enough money to do anything, and they're just going to be stuck in hell the entire time.
So
they may not even get a
those
free agent at the end of it.
for those who don't know, can you explain what that tier means
I
specifically?
would love to. How long you got, Tyler? How long you got? I'll explain the whole thing.
You take this is our podcast. You take as long as you need, brother.
Okay, Jonathan Mosaic is a fucking piece of shit fraud, and I hate him so much. The guy sits on his ass and does absolutely nothing, then goes and talks to the fans, real face to face with a smug, arrogant attitude. Like, guys, it's Cardinal baseball.
Preach it.
Chill out. You're
Preach
still gonna
it.
take your family to the games. You're still gonna go to Ballpark Village and pay for the $15 beers and
God.
the $12 nachos. You're gonna do it. Do you know why? Because you need something to do. Because your life sucks.
'Cause you're
You hate
idiots.
your life.
'Cause
It
you're
all
idiots.
sucks. And you want to go watch Cardinal baseball, you dummy.
Oh my
idiot.
God.
And you're gonna pay $40 for parking because we're gonna make you. By the way, we're gonna say we're gonna trade Arenado, and we're not gonna do it because fuck you. That's why. I don't like you either. And that's the Mosaic tier. That's not. It's not indicative of these people, by the way.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's just a general summary of John Mosaic. And you know what? I'm sorry for getting a little bit heated, but
Hey,
I'm not a fan of him, obviously, and I hope he sees this.
That's
I'll send it to him.
we'll send it to him. We'll find his email. We'll
I'll
send it to him.
I'll send it to a PR person at the Cardinals, and we'll go from there.
Oh
But
my God.
yeah, that's really all I have to say about the matter. You know,
love it,
I'm
man.
pretty neutral on the whole thing.
I can tell.
Thank you.
Super neutral. Super neutral. All right.
But yeah,
so
that's our auction.
that
tier
is
list.
our auction tier list. Very well done as always. I mean, Kevin tier being my favorite tier for sure.
Yes, I didn't want to put him at the bottom. That's not fair. That's not fair. to
Yeah. I mean, couldn't be.
Yes.
Right? It just you're objective. This is objective.
Yes, correct. That's just me
data.
being resentful and taking
Data
things out.
driven.
No.
We should change
Just-
this to the
just
ABL
mediocre.
data driven podcast. That's
Yes,
what we should
correct.
do.
Yeah, we're switching. We're turning a new leaf here. It's gonna be pure data.
Yep. All right. So last but not least, hot takes going into the auction. We had them last year. We'll do it again this year. I think, and again, these in no way. I mean, knowing what they are beforehand, I can say this very confidently that these will have absolutely zero impact on the auction itself. But it will be pretty funny. So I'm gonna go first because I want to do yours last. So mine is I showed my rankings earlier. Actually, I'll go back here and show my rankings. So my hot take is that of the 5 teams that are currently in the top 10 that are new, so Tampa, Arizona, White Sox, Nationals, and Astros, of those 5 teams, only 2 of them will be in the top 10 of these rankings post auction. And the reason that's my hot take is for a couple reasons. One, I think so. The Rays, D-backs, and White Sox are all sitting in a pretty good spot, but I think one of them, not going to name any names, but one of them potentially could screw it up by spending too much money too early, and ultimately costing them to maybe get 4, 5, 6 players at the end that are very mediocre and not as good as they could have been, which would cause them to potentially drop down here.
Yep.
And then really between that, then the Astros and the Nationals, I'm thinking they have decent amount of money to spend, but not Washington has good roster, okay money to spend. Houston, okay roster, money to spend. I'm thinking between the 2 of them, they won't necessarily do enough, and there will be teams down here like Sam who could easily jump in with a halfway decent auction. The Yankees who could jump in with a halfway decent auction. Joe obviously could with a decent auction. So I think there's teams that could bump them out. So that's kind of my hot take. I think there will only be 2 of those 5 left up there.
I love it. Absolutely agree. I think that's pretty fair. Just you being a new owner, you don't know like the flow of the auction. You get wrapped up in it. You see the names out there, those pretty shiny names.
Yep.
And you jump on it too early. It's
Yep.
pretty fair. My hot take will be: we will leave the auction with 29 owners. I don't know who it will be. It will be one of you though. Just based on what happened with the ACL, we had a couple close calls. Listen, it was a long process. I feel like that might carry over. No one. It's been pretty cordial so far. I'll give everyone credit after everything that may have went on. Pretty cordial, but something's gonna happen.
There's some built-up animosity somewhere.
There will be some tomfoolery. There will be some hijinks. There might be a little bit of chaos that might ensue, and I can't really guarantee what's gonna happen. But my hot take is, we will enter with 30 and we will leave with 29. Again, don't know who it is.
I love that.
Not gonna speculate. But
I love that so much because we said it beforehand, right? Like we are warning people that there is a very real chance that this may happen. So take it with a grain of salt. But if it happens,
oh man, if it happens, it'd be the funniest thing ever.
You know what you heard first. You know what you heard
I won't
first.
even be like, oh man, that sucks. We lost an owner. I'll be like, this is the greatest day of my life.
This is too good. This is too good.
This is the hit of all hits. I need to go to the casino after this. What are the odds?
Oh, man. All right. Well, I really appreciate you being back here, Cal. It's kind of crazy that we're back for year 2, but here we are, having a blast. I will say one thing. I'm not going to bring a Monaco again for our next podcast because boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, is it hitting right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back at probably, what do you think, probably post first year draft, I would think. We'll probably do.
Yeah, we get a good sense of the rosters as long as you psychos don't start trading like crazy.
not doing anything super crazy, but yeah, we'll get a, I guess, a true preseason pod in there post draft, get some new rankings, that kind of stuff, maybe some predictions for the season. But yeah, outside of that, that's all I got, my man. So anything else from you?
No, good to be back, guys. I'm happy.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy to be back in the seat here. So we are fired up.
Hell yeah! All right, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week. We will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your night.
See you.
Till I collapse, I'll be moving too fast. Got my foot up on the gas, full throttle till I crash. I'm back with a vengeance. You gon' see me end this. I will be ascending. I don't ever slack. I got my eyes on a prize. What I see for my life, I don't float, no, I fly. Do or die. Cause you gotta do or die. There ain't no compromise. Get ready for a fight. Do you wanna see what you're made of? What if there was no one to save us? Would you leave it all on the pavement? Would you dive the ground with some straight blood? I just wanna find all my limits. I'ma put